Hey guys, it's Yorkie here, bringing you some coverage from the November Go4 Cup Finals. We did previously cover the October Go4 Cup Finals the last month. If you want to check those out, the link is down in the description below. But this time around we've taken the highest scoring drivers from the November weekly races and we have put them all together in a 8-way fight across 2 races for the prize money of a total €150. The first €100 will go to first place and then the other €50 will go to second place. So once again, the same format as we ran in October with 10 minutes qualifying, 15 minutes race. We're going to take a quick look at the drivers that are running in this November final, and there should be 4 names that you will immediately recognise. We've got Kaki, USSR, Alex, Papan and Tony R. They're all in the October final. However, we do have some newcomers as well. We've got Raffle, Type T and Aris, who all 3 of them are running in the Aston Martin V12 Vantage along with Tony R. We also have Kors in a Z4 GT3. Papan's in his roof, Alex and Kaki are both in the BMW M3 GT. So this first video is going to be covering the first race and we're going to be racing at Imola. The second race is going to cover Silverstone. A link to that video will be provided at the end of this one. But let's take a look at the qualifying results for Imola. So yet again, Kaki takes first place with a 140.007. USSR Alex was 7 tenths behind him in a 140.7. Third was Papan in his roof with a 141.062. Fourth was Tony R, only 6 thousandths shy of Papan, very close there. Rafael was in 5th position with a 141.234. Type T was in 6th position with a 143.285, and then Aris finished up in 7th with a 141.693. So here we go then with race 1. Hopefully the guys will be able to provide us with some good action. You'll just have to bear with me one moment whilst I hop to the spectator cam. But we're just waiting for the lights to build up and then the guys will be underway. So the green lights are off now and the drivers will be heading down towards turn 1, trying to pick up a couple of them, as it looks like Type T is going to take a look around the outside into turn 1 of what looks to be Tony R. Will he be able to make this move stick? Coming into the braking zone now. Look like there may have been a little bit of contact and Type T has gone and spun in the first corner. He's facing the wrong way. Now picking up Raffle as he's right on the rear of Tony R. Looks like once again there's a little bit of contact there between the 2 drivers and Tony R has gone and spun the car around. Looks like he suffered a little bit of damage to the left rear of his Aston Martin. And Type T has gone and slipped through as Tony was rejoining the circuit there. So here we pick up Raffle and there may be some slight damage on the front of his Aston Martin. Not being able to pick that up. Yeah, it looked like there's a little bit of contact there between himself and also Aris as Aris was rejoining the circuit. Yeah, it looked like there was a little bit of damage there to his front bumper. Now picking up Alex, who's on the rear of Papan, just a couple of car lengths behind, and it looks like Kaki is coming away with a fairly decent lead after the first sector or so as we come through this tricky right-hander at the bottom of the hill here, climbing up the hill now towards the chicane. So looked like there was a fair bit of contact there between a number of drivers going through turns 1, 2 and 3. It is quite difficult to navigate those, especially when you're going side by side. You have to be very respectful and wary of the other driver alongside you. But it looks like as everyone was obviously trying to gain as many places off the start as possible, got a little bit aggressive and there was some contact. A couple of people suffering a little bit of damage, so it'll be interesting to see how that will affect their race, as it looks like Alex is closing up on the back of Papan here as we come onto the start-finish straight to finish lap 1. He'll be picking up the slipstream now. Maybe he'll be able to have a look down the inside into turn 1 and potentially gain another position, or will Papan be able to defend that and hold on to second place? As we come into the braking zone now for turn 1, will Alex be able to make a move? No, it doesn't look like he's going to settle in behind Papan for the moment and just follow him through this sequence of corners. Obviously you can see there he's getting very close, with it only about a car length, maybe less than that, behind the rear bumper of Papan. You can see there Kaki in the foreground just building and extending his early lead. Probably be a couple of seconds by now coming into this slow left-handed hairpin. It looks like Alex has had a little bit of look down the inside there of Papan. Papan taking the usual line, but Alex taking a slightly tighter one. I think Papan may have had to give a little bit of room on the inside, but Alex wasn't able to get his nose up alongside the rear of Papan's car, and it looks like they're both settling into second and third positions as they were previously for the moment. Looks like Raffle is dropping off the back of Alex here. You can see him in the background of the picture as we watch these two guys battle out for second position on this second lap. Coming up towards the chicane, you need to avoid the curbs, or the large sausage curbs on the inside of both parts. You can take the red and white curbs perfectly fine, but it's the large yellow and black ones that will really unsettle the car and cost you an awful lot of time. Coming down the hill now towards the final two corners. This is an overtaking opportunity. Will Alex take it? It doesn't look like he will for the moment, and instead is going to try and get himself a good run coming out of this final corner and use the slipstream down the start-finish straight. So coming out onto that now, it looks like Alex is much closer than he was on the previous lap. We saw how much of a slipstream Alex managed to pick up off of Papand on that previous lap. Starting lap 3 now, he's right underneath the rear wing of his car. Looks like Papand is going to try and defend the inside line, making Alex go around the outside as we come into the braking zone. Will Alex be able to pull this one off? And my God, he's gone and done it. That was an absolutely blistering move there around the outside, an absolute textbook overtaking maneuver. Fantastic stuff by Alex there. Really good driving to avoid making contact. Likewise with Papand, and could see the corner there. Just what an absolutely fantastic move to take second position, and now Alex is probably going to try and see if he can close the gap down to Karki, who has gone and extended quite a fairly significant lead at this early stage. There you can see the driver standings at the moment. So Tony R has managed to get back past Type T and also Aris from the early incident that he had at the start of the race, and has got himself up into 5th position. I imagine he's quite a bit behind Rafael at the moment, and as you've just seen in the very early stages of this lap, Alex and Papand have gone and swapped positions and are now running in 2nd and 3rd place respectively. But yeah, absolutely fantastic racing there by these two guys. An absolutely fantastic blistering move around the outside into turn 1 by Alex. Very good stuff indeed. One of the best moves that I've seen in quite a long time, especially in competitive racing. It's not very often that you'll see someone try and make an as bold move as that. However, we do only have 12 laps to go, and it looks like Alex is pulled out a couple of car lengths on Papand at the moment, but Papand is sticking with Alex, and he will be picking up the slipstream here as we come in towards turn 1 yet again. I doubt he'll be able to make a move either down the inside or outside. He's not quite close enough, so he's going to follow him through the first sequence of corners here. You can see the guys taking slightly different lines to each other. Papand taking a slightly tighter line through the exit of turn 2 there to try and open up turn 3 a little bit more. And then coming in through here, both of the guys taking the curbs quite nicely, using a full width of the circuit, and using the curbs with a fair amount of aggression, taking a good line through this left-handed hairpin there, and both of them getting a nice smooth exit, fairly similar. Looked like Papand was going a slightly bit wider and using a little bit more curb there. There we jump into Rafael as he comes through the left-handed hairpin. He does have a slight bit of damage there, you can see on the right front of his Aston Martin. However, that shouldn't affect him too much. It will just be a little bit of aero damage that I imagine as he goes and takes the curb, and a fair bit of grass on the inside there of the left-hander before he comes down the hill. There we can see Tony. He's got a little bit of damage to the left rear of his car. Yet again, probably with a little bit of aero damage. I doubt he'll have much suspension damage as he comes through the fairly tricky double right-hander there. It is quite difficult to navigate that and get the car slowed down. Now we're picking up Aris in his grey and silver Aston Martin. Comes through the same corner. Doesn't look like he was taking it quite as aggressively as the other guys in front of him, but still keeping it within the white lines nice and smoothly. Now picking up Type T as he comes up towards the chicane himself. Coming onto the brakes now, and hopefully he'll be able to get his way through the chicane as we pick up Aris once again. There's Tony R. Looks like he's just come through the final corner out onto the start-finish straight, so you can see the gap between the guys there as Rafael just in front of him comes over the start-finish line now. Papand's just coming through turn 3, so there are some fairly significant gaps building between a number of these guys, but obviously a lot of that was caused by the contact and the incidents on the first lap and the first couple of corners. And it looks like that Alex is starting to pull away from Papand now. There's a good few car lengths between the two, so hopefully Alex may potentially be able to close up onto the rear of Karki, and hopefully Papand will be able to try and keep pace with Alex a little bit. And just as I say that, you see Papand there running shy of the apex on the inside and running a little bit wide, so he would have lost himself a little bit of time there. Obviously these guys are pushing, and with that you can make some fairly costly errors, which will obviously cost you time. So hopefully Papan can settle down a little bit, level his head slightly, and try and bring the pace back to the car rather than hunt for the pace. So these guys come down the hill towards the final 2 corners yet again. We just had Kaki there in the very foreground. You can hear him off in the right ears. It looks like Alex is going to run a little bit wide there and dip the wheels out onto the gravel, once again running wide through the final corner. That will cost him a little bit of time. However, there's still a fairly big gap between him and Papan, so Papan's not really going to be able to capitalise on that at the moment as we come into start lap 6 now. You can see there the pace of the guys. Kaki's fastest lap is a 140.5. No, sorry, a 140.3. His previous lap was a 140.5. Alex doing a 140.9 as his fastest and did a 142. However, he did make a couple of mistakes. And obviously, you can see that the lap times for the rest of the drivers with both their best laps so far in this race and also their previous lap, as we're currently watching Kaki at the moment as he comes up towards the end of the first sector, starting sector 2. Or shall I say he's already started sector 2. The split is just after the hairpin, I believe. Navigating the fairly tricky right-hander at the bottom of the hill there quite nicely. Coming up towards the chicane now. Didn't see him get on the brakes there, but he's obviously managed to get the car slowed down. I think the car was just too far away from the camera to load up the level of detail on the car and show the brake lights. That's quite a tricky braking zone for that first left-hander there of the final 2 corners. There's a little dip just as you come into the braking zone, and it's very, very easy to go over that and also lock up the brakes, which obviously will make you go deep into the first corner. So you either need to brake just afterward, which is usually a little bit too late in these cars, so you have to brake a little bit just before, basically modulate the brake pressure to ensure that you don't lock the tyres, don't run too deep. You see Alex there using all the curb on the inside there into turn 1. We're getting a much smoother run through turns 2 and also turn 3. Papan still keeping him fairly honest. We see Rafael now coming through turns 1, 2 and 3. There is Tony R there in the background doing the same. So looks like the gap between these two is slowly coming down. It's not chunks of time coming off, but you can see it does look like Tony R is slowly but surely catching up to the back of Rafael, and I believe Rafael is probably losing time on a lap by lap basis to Papan. I don't know whether Rafael has made any mistakes anywhere along the line. Obviously he had the contact on the first lap, but I don't know whether he's had any half spins anywhere along the line or whether it's just pace difference between Papan and Rafael which has caused the gap in front of him. Likewise with the 2 drivers behind Tony R as well in 6th and 7th position. As Rafael gets a fairly smooth run through that first chicane there, running out a little bit wide on the exit using the AstroTurf, but he didn't get himself a penalty. Coming into the braking zone now, there was that little dip that I was just talking about. Rafael navigating that rather nicely and getting the car slowed down for the penultimate corner, taking a nice smooth line through the final corner as well, trying to maximise the acceleration of the Aston Martin and also its top speed coming down this start-finish straight to start the next lap. There we can see Tony R as well coming down towards turn 1, nailing the braking point quite nicely, taking all the curb on the inside there of turn 1, taking a fair bit in turn 2 and avoiding most of it on the inside for turn 3. As if you are struggling with traction a little bit, it can cause the rear wheels to spin up and you'll get some oversteer coming through turn 3 if you ride the curb on the inside there. So you kind of have to be mindful of that and obviously plan your way around the corner. Try and obviously get as close to it as possible, but at the same time try and avoid touching it. As we come through the long left-hander there with Tony at the moment. Took that rather nicely, nice and smooth. We'll jump back to Rafael once again as he climbs up the hill towards the chicane. And there we can see Papand once again as he comes down towards the final two corners in pursuit of Alex. It's just shy of the apex on the inside there, didn't quite hook up the curb on the inside, but still nice and smooth through those two corners. And the gap is probably just under a second, I'd say, between second and third position at the moment. Roughly over us, probably hanging around the second mark, maybe slightly over. So come through turns 1, 2, and now also 3. It's a rather nice camera angle, this one. You can see that Papand's able to use the curb on the inside. I think the roof has slightly better traction than the Aston Martin does. It doesn't quite spin up the rear wheels quite as easily. And depending on your setup, as Papand goes and runs out wide and skips across gravel a little bit with his outside wheels. But yeah, depending on with your setup on the roof, determines how aggressively you can attack the curbs. Personally, it's not my favourite car within the GT3 class. I do tend to struggle with it because I like to take the curbs, and with the default setup, or at least with any setups that I found with the roof so far, I haven't really been able to find a way to properly attack them compared to some of the other cars within the GT3 class. So yeah, different driving styles, different car characteristics obviously come into play within the GT3 class, which is absolutely fantastic. It mixes up the racing a little bit. However, it does mean that some tracks play into some certain specific cars' strengths, and they'll perform differently on different tracks. So obviously you've got the big straight line speed cars of the Bentley and the SLS. Also the Aston does pretty well in the straight line speed. However, corners, well, some corners shall I say, aren't exactly their greatest characteristics, and obviously the tighter, more twistier tracks, shall I say, they do tend to struggle on those circuits a little bit more compared to, say, something like a Z4 or this BMW M3, which does seem to be very much a jack of all trades sort of car. The Audi R8 was kind of classed as that as well, as it looks like we've got an Aston Martin there. There's Rafa and there's Tony, and we're just going to try and see if we can pick him up. I believe that it is going to be Aris. There's Type T. Yep, there's Aris. And yeah, he's been lapped by a number of drivers, the top 3 so far. It looks like he's got fairly significant damage to the front of his Aston as well. So I wonder if he's had a fairly big moment somewhere along the line and had contact with the wall, which would have caused that damage, and which would have also explained why he's so far down behind as well, and has also been lapped by the top 3 drivers. So picking up Tony once again, you can see that the gap to Rafael is getting smaller. He's looking a fair bit closer than he was a couple of laps ago when we were previously watching these two guys. And I wonder if Tony will be able to get himself within the slipstream and also close up a little bit more and potentially be able to try and mount a challenge on 4th place, currently held by Rafael, before the end of this race. We've only got 5 laps remaining, so he doesn't have an amazing amount of time to make a move. You can see there the gap is getting smaller, as it sounds like we have an Aston Martin in the pits, and I believe that'll be Aris. As Tony's picking up the slipstream now to Rafael, will be able to make a move down and coming into the first turn and trying to make the similar move to what Alex did, going side by side. It looks like Tony's going to slot in behind Rafael coming through turns 2 and also 3. Wasn't able to pull off that move around the outside there. He did dip the wheels onto the grass just before the braking zone, and that probably cost him some stability within the braking. So yeah, this should be interesting now to see if Tony can get past Raffle before the end of the race. He's had one move so far. There's not really too many opportunities before the end of the lap. The last 2 corners is probably his next best opportunity. Possibly if he can get a good run coming out of these 2 right-handers here and up the hill, he may be able to have a little bit of a look down the inside into the chicane, but it looked like Tony ran a little bit deep there and got a little bit too close to Raffle, which would have cost him some momentum, and he's not close enough to have a go through the chicane. It does make it very, very tight for yourself if you do try to go up the inside there. So this will be his next best opportunity, is coming down the hill here into the next braking zone. Obviously he'll be picking up the slipstream. Will he be able to mount a challenge down the inside? Having a little bit of a look there. You go side by side. He's going to make the move down the inside, coming into the penultimate corner. Looks like Rafa's going to try and hold it around the outside to Tony. Tony's got the inside line there for the final corner now. Both coming out onto the start-finish straight. It's going to be a drag race as we come down towards the start-finish line. Looks like that Tony R's had the slightly better run coming out of the final corner to Raffle, and has gone and slipped himself in front, and Raffle's now going to have the slipstream. Will he be able to try and mount a counter-attack coming into this turn 1 here? Coming into the braking zone now, it looks like he's going to stay and settle in behind Tony for the moment. So very good driving once again by these 2 drivers, and Tony being able to hold the inside line through the last 2 corners to pull off a very nice move. Raphael driving very fairly with some good racing, giving him plenty of room on the inside, and did try and defend it, however wasn't really able to get the run coming out of the final corner to try and see if he can retake the position from Tony. And Tony's got himself 4th place coming into the last 4 laps of this 15-lap race. And we can see here Papan coming through the chicane, and it looks like he's gone and lost a fair amount of time to Alex, who is now coming in towards the braking zone for the final 2 corners. And there you can see Kaki coming over the start-finish line now to start, I believe, lap 12. Nope, sorry, lap 13. And there you can see the standings at the moment. So Kaki's still doing very, very similar lap times to his best time there that you can see. He's only 0.04 of a second off his fastest from this race. Alex currently doing 141s. Papan's in the 142s. Tony R hasn't come across the start-finish line yet, but his previous lap was a 143. And Raphael's was a 144, but they were battling on the previous lap, so that would have cost them a little bit of time there. But I believe Harris has gone and retired from this race. Obviously he suffered some fairly significant damage a few laps ago and pulled into the pits to retire the car. He was a lap down, so I imagine it would have been very, very difficult for him to try and close the gap back up. As we pick up Type T now as it comes into the chicane, it looks like he's got some damage to the front of his Aston Martin, so potentially he may have hit a wall somewhere along the line as well. And we just caught a glimpse there of Kaki coming up into the back of the picture. There is Aris in the garage confirming his retirement. So Type T now coming down towards the end of lap 12 for him. He'll be starting lap 13. Kaki's currently on lap 13 and he'll be starting lap 14 in just a second. You can see them both there, so probably in the next half a lap or so Kaki will be up onto the back of Type T and we'll be lapping him. As Type T comes into the first couple of corners now, running the curbs through the second part. He avoided the curb in the first part, and likewise with the third, and now he moves over to the left hand side of the track and slows down to let Kaki through. So good, fair, respectable stuff by Type T, not holding Kaki up. And Kaki goes and puts a lap on him as we now pick up Raphael once again, who is still pretty close to the back of Tony. He's not too far behind, probably about 7 or 8 car lengths, roughly around about a second behind Tony as they both come into the first sequence of corners. Raphael using an awful lot of curb both the first and second part. Running a tiny bit wide there through turn 3, which would have been caused by the tighter line that he had through turn 3. He didn't quite open it up as much as you would need to go through there full throttle. And if you do try and hang on full throttle through turn 3 when the line is fairly tight, it does increase your chances of running out wide. It can be done if you put enough steering lock in, but you lose out on the acceleration, and obviously dipping the wheels onto the grass can also break traction and potentially cause you to spin, so it's a little bit risky, but Rafael's managed to keep hold of it and didn't look like he had any sort of moment. As Papan now comes into the penultimate corner, taking that very nice and smoothly. He's obviously gone and settled down for third position at the moment. Alex is too far up the road in front of him. He's got a fairly big gap to Tony behind, so obviously not threatened by that. He can afford to settle down and just take it relatively easy, not make any mistakes, and he'll come away with third position in this first race. As you could just hear that in the foreground, it sounded like Alex and also Type T are fairly close together. Yeah, you can see Alex has gone and put a lap down on Type T. So Alex accelerates up the hill now. And coming into this, it's quite a deceptive left-hander, this one. I believe it's off camber, so it's fairly tricky. But it feels like you can take a lot more speed through it than you actually can. It's fairly open at the start and then tightens up a tiny bit on the exit in terms of angle that the corner goes through. Kaki's now come down into the final two corners, taking that first penultimate corner there very nice and smoothly, and then the second left-hander nice and smoothly running out a little bit wide, but he's now going to come over the start-finish line to win race 1. So putting himself in a very good position as he gives a flash of the lights as he comes over the start-finish line now to take the win of round 1. Picking up maximum points from that. Alex is going to come home in second position. As you can see, Type T is going to be between him and also Papand. So Alex is going to come across the start-finish line now to take second. Papand will be in third. Tony will probably be in fourth if he can hold it for the rest of the lap. So obviously Rafael's in too far behind. Yeah, there you can see Tony is on the start-finish straight now. So Tony will take fourth, Rafael will take fifth, Type T will take sixth position, and in seventh position, who retired earlier on in the race, will be Aris, and obviously cause was a no-show for this race and will therefore not be classified. So that is round 1 all complete. There is the final standings that you can see. Some very, very good racing in that first race. Hopefully we'll just see some more great racing in the second race. And will Alex be able to mount an attack on Kaki and see if he can pick up the win in the second race? See if he can take the fight to Kaki and deny him the 100 euros that goes to first position, or will Alex get the 50 euros of second position, or will anyone else be able to take the challenge to either Alex or Kaki and potentially steal some of that prize money away from them in this second round? So that's going to conclude it for this first race. The link to the second race is down in the description. It will also be up in an annotation on the screen here now. So feel free to click that and I shall join you over there. But thank you very much for watching this coverage. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And I shall see you guys over in race 2. So yeah, thanks very much for watching. Hopefully I'll see you soon. Take care.